Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, your premier platform for real-time global insights. Well, I want to show you what the satellite imagery looked like on Sunday. We can see what's left over of Dorian kind of exiting parts of the northeastern United States, but really eastern Canada. And it did cause quite a bit of problems in parts of Nova Scotia, for example, as it left. We'll take a look at what Dorian did in terms of precipitation in a few moments, but outside of the rainfall that we got from Dorian in parts of Florida, Georgia, North and South Carolina, those storms you see popping right there, see at the very end of that animation, over parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and parts of Georgia, that's some of the first rain we've seen in that area in well over a week. Now, in this animation, we did get some early morning rain in parts of Illinois, Missouri, and Iowa that did try to spread a bit to the east, but the real show was back west. And I'm going to show you what storms look like in the overnight hours, but I got to flip over to infrared imagery to see that. If you look at this animation, big storms building from parts of the Central Plains. So I'm thinking South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, all the way down to the panhandles in the overnight hours. And this is system number one that we're going to watch very carefully, because throughout the day today, this system will be spreading toward the state of Wisconsin, Minnesota, and the Great Lakes, and along its way, setting us up for a very, very wet week ahead. Early morning this morning, about 3 o'clock, when I was getting this recorded, you can see here in parts of eastern Colorado, parts of Kansas, Nebraska, and South Dakota, a lot of thunderstorm activity. And these are the storms that we're watching most carefully as they move in this direction throughout the day today. We're going to see what Storm Prediction Center is looking at in a few minutes. Meanwhile, to the south, still some active storms in New Mexico and Texas coming in through this region. Now, over the weekend, though, the real action, if you ask me, was way out in the Pacific Northwest. Did we see a lot of showers and storms in through this area? Absolutely. And did we get this great squall line move through, parts of Missouri over towards St. Louis? Yeah. But look at the storms that we saw here in parts of the Pacific Northwest. We got this report yesterday. This was of a pretty strong circulation here that was moving through parts of Portland. And so this was on a supercell. And it's amazing to see this this time of year. So our severe weather action happening out in the Pacific Northwest. So that tells you how active the pattern's going to be in the coming days. So what did we get in total? Well, this is your last 72 hours of total accumulated precipitation as you look across the U.S. And for early September, this is very, very wet for Oregon, Washington, Idaho. So very, very wet for that area. You can see kind of the overall flow pattern transitioning back to something like this, creating storm systems that race off in this direction. That's a big key change to the ridge we saw in this area over the last, several weeks, it seemed like. So that pattern change, what does it mean? Where are we going? Well, first of all, let's at least just get a quick glimpse at how much rain we got out of Dorian, just to kind of put this one finally to bed here. What are we looking at on the left? That's the last 7 days, stretching from Florida, Georgia, North and South Carolina. A lot of heavy rain. But come into here into North Carolina, well, they're not going to be putting this one to bed anytime soon, because the cleanup and recovery effort is going to take quite some time. Major flooding here along the coast, with some locations picking up over a foot of rainfall, in addition to those strong winds and a lot of storm surge from this system. So we'll be seeing throughout the beginning of this week some of the damage in parts of the Carolinas from this system, but certainly some major flooding rains in through that area. Now, we talked last week about how active the pattern was going to be. And what I said was we're going to be seeing a lot of troughs kind of orbiting, the mid-latitudes around the North Pole here. And right now, if we kind of take a look at things, the jet stream is quite active. You can see if you just kind of follow the flow of it here, very strong winds throughout the day today. And although we do have a high over low pattern, this particular one is not blocked up and it's going to move. So today, we're going to watch this trough right in through here, sneak through the parts of the Midwest, getting into the Great Lakes states, and that's going to be kicking off a lot of severe weather to its south and through this area. But it'll be this broader trough we're going to watch sweeping through the middle and end of this week that's going to kick off a second system. Meanwhile, there's a larger ridge sitting here, and heat is going to be building into that area. And the Pacific jet stream, as you can see, is still quite strong and unblocked, relatively unblocked, and we're going to expect to see this pattern continue to move. So if we look just over the next 4 days from the Storm Prediction Center, I've got Monday in the upper left. Keep a close eye in this area. Tuesday, front will be draped back in through here. New system is beginning to merge right into this area, so keep an eye right on that same corridor. By the time we get into Wednesday, we're watching this area again, and look, Thursday, same area. So this tells you the trajectory of the next few systems as they race out of the Pacific Northwest toward the Great Lakes states and then lift toward the eastern Canada. And the lifting toward eastern Canada is a critical piece to all of this because that is what's going to prevent us from bringing cold air, really cold air that could give us that early frost potential. The lifting of these systems is going to keep that away, all right? So let's take a look at our high-resolution NAM model and see what to expect today. So system number 1, remember all the storms early this morning. This is 6 a.m. Central Time. Right now they're in parts of South Dakota, stretching through Nebraska and all the way down this line here into Texas. The main frontal boundary is stretched out here. The warm frontal boundary is right in through here. We're going to watch throughout middle of the day where this broader front meets up with the warm front here. This is actually an upper level feature. It's going to meet up together right here, and this will be the corridor around which we're going to be watching for our greatest severe weather potential. Best shear, best instability, and so it's that area right in through there. So South Dakota, eastern Nebraska, getting into Iowa, that throughout the day today we're going to have to keep a close eye on the organization of these storms. Now, I don't think that the NAM model nailed exactly the timing or the types of storms into this area. So we're going to watch it throughout the day today to see when and where those storms are showing up. Okay, this is 8 p.m. Monday. Let's now get you out into Tuesday morning. So heavy rain spreads through parts of Iowa, but definitely into parts of Wisconsin, UP and Michigan, then eventually over into Michigan by tomorrow morning. Now, system number 1 heads on off through Ontario into Quebec. System number 2, look at this. Tuesday afternoon, look at all the storms popping in the Intermountain West. With that deeper trough in place, remember it's like this now. This is great upper level support for just seeing a lot of storms popping up on the mountains. But the system does emerge in the Great Plains here by the time we get into Tuesday overnight hours. And what's neat about this is I let you stretch out to early in the morning on Wednesday as that system emerges. You can actually see right in through here that the front is actually kind of coming together from the old system, daisy chained up with the new system emerging here in parts of Montana. And as that system keeps going, this will at least take us out through early morning on Wednesday. We can see system number 2 taking off Wednesday, and it's really going to move Thursday and Friday across the United States. Now, just looking at our next 5 days, because of the trajectory of these systems coming through here, yep, the severe weather concentration is going to be here, but the frontal boundaries do stretch down into parts of Texas, so that's why you see a lot of rain there. Upper level ridge kind of firmly in control at times over the southeast, keeping this area relatively dry. But the potential exists with the next 2, possibly 3 systems, another one coming next weekend, maybe, we'll talk about that in a second, may give us 3, 4, 5 inches of rain inside that last circle that I just drew there, which stretches from the Dakotas through Minnesota, northern Iowa, Wisconsin, and the UP and Michigan. So very, very active track. And we're adding that rain to this map. August statewide precipitation ranks just came out over the weekend. We can see, remember that corridor we kept talking about from South Dakota through parts of Nebraska, Kansas, getting into parts of western Missouri. Yep, new all-time records for the state of Nebraska and the state of Kansas. Wettest August on record here. Stretching it out to show you the whole summer, this is June through August precipitation ranks. And you can see where it was very wet in the Midwest and where it was dry. Remember how we had through the month of July this corridor right in through here, even pockets of Michigan and also this area and parts of the Ohio River Valley that showed up with drought? Well, it's reflected better in some of these numbers. But the real place that had a really, bad summer in terms of precipitation was our southwestern monsoon, with Arizona now having its driest summer on record. So that's some longer term perspective on this. Now, what are we going to watch together? Well, the wave pattern that we're noticing here through the next 15 days or so is going to feature a very active jet stream and more often than not troughing in the western United States. Now, what's the significance of that? Well, getting us through the day on Monday, shortwave number 1 is right in through here, moving through the Great Lakes states. That's our first system. The deeper wave is now right here established across the western United States. And that's the system that slowly progresses by the time we get into Wednesday morning to create a low pressure system on the Great Plains. But look what's behind it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 extra lows here that are all in place around this upper level ridge that's sitting here in north central Canada. So while this trough digs in, we're going to be seeing some big time warmth here across the eastern part of the United States. Now this trough, like the others, lifts. Do you see that? See, it comes out of Idaho and lifts through parts of North and South Dakota, and then heads north. And because these systems are lifting, that resists bringing in the frost potential, that cold air that comes in behind them. Now, as we get you out beyond the end of this week, so this is Saturday to Sunday, look at what next week is favoring here in the models. Another deep trough digging down into the western United States with a big ridge building here over the Great Lakes. So this is big warmth here and a cool down in that area. You're going to see that in the 6 to 10 day forecast I'll show you in a few moments. Beyond that, let's get out to next Wednesday, the 19th. This is now next Saturday, the 21st. And even if I take you all the way to the 24th and 25th, we continue to see the models advertising some sort of Gulf of Alaska trough that could move into the West Coast. Now, what's going to be very tricky about this is some of the influences on the development of these troughs is going to be tropical activity coming out of the Western Pacific. And right now, the latest solution is to keep this trough in place here. Now, should we back this trough up? In other words, let's take it out of the Gulf and put it right here over parts of the Aleutian Islands. So out of the Gulf of Alaska, move it back about 500 to 800 miles. That is going to allow for deeper troughing to settle into the northeast. As it stands, broader warmth spreading in this area right now. But the big uncertainty is, what do the typhoons do to kind of affect the flow of that? And we're going to see what those typhoons are doing right now in just a few moments. So through your next 15 days, the primary storm track is right in through this area, and that's why we see the major wet bias stretched across those regions. You do notice that down here where the ridge will be in place, relatively drier conditions across the southern region, getting over to Florida, but there is pretty big model discrepancy down here over Florida, Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina, with the system possibly emerging next week, a tropical disturbance getting into that area. The GFS is not showing it. The operational European is trying to do that. But this is the next 15 days of precipitation anomalies. So let's get right into the details here and take a look at the rest of this week. So we've looked closely at system number 1. This is Tuesday morning, getting into Tuesday afternoon and evening. So there goes system number 1. It heads off toward Quebec. Now what do we notice? This is now Wednesday, early Wednesday morning, right here, getting into Wednesday midday. So this is where the deeper trough is making system number 2 right in through this area. Remember, system number 1 is leaving its front dangled right in through here, and it transitions from a cold front to a warm front there, out ahead of the next system. So Wednesday morning through afternoon is here. This is now getting into Wednesday evening and the overnight hours. So look at system number 2 plaguing the Central Plains on Wednesday, moving through the Great Lakes states on Thursday, and there it drags its main front through all the way to Texas. So that's why you saw that quarter of rainfall coming in through this area. So that's system number 2. Now, as we let this one get out of the way on Friday into Canada, again, it's lifting here. That's good for not bringing in tremendously cold air. The major model differences start to show up right in through here. This is now Sunday morning. The operational GFS produces yet another system on a weak shortwave right in through this area, adding a whole lot more rainfall to an area that was getting a lot of rainfall this week. That is not there in the European model. So we're going to have to watch the end of this week and weekend very carefully. What happens is that system kind of takes off toward Hudson Bay, drags its front through here, bringing in a lot of rain. But again, not in the European model. The European model wants to bring in a tropical disturbance into Florida, Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, right into this area at this same time. So major differences in the models here, and it's all due to the kind of complicated flow in the jet stream. So we're going to stop it there and just know we have 2 big systems coming this week, okay? What are our temperatures doing? Well, this is what high temperatures look like throughout this week. Monday's high temperatures split north-south. We're deep into the 90s down here in the south. 80s, mid-80s, getting all the way up into the central Corn Belt here, but cooler weather due to cloud cover and rain stretching across the northern part of the United States. This is now getting into Tuesday's highs. Out ahead of that system, look at the warmth we see down here, stretching from parts of the Ohio River Valley, from the mid to lower Mississippi River Valley, and then stretching almost through the whole of the Cotton Belt. Now, if we keep going into Wednesday, heat stays on. Thursday, this is when the big front comes through. Look at the cooler temperatures in North Dakota through northern Minnesota. That's Thursday's highs. This is now getting into Friday's highs. That clears things out a bit. Saturday and into Sunday. So let's go from there to our overnight lows and take a look at what we got here. So this is early this morning. If there's an area that I'm watching for potential for frost early this morning on Monday, about 6 a.m., take a look at the temperatures right here in the UP. We could get down there into the low to mid 30s. We'll keep an eye on it. But this is Monday into Tuesday's lows, Wednesday's lows. Remember, the big front starts to come through on Thursday, so there it is out in the west. Friday morning lows. We can see at this time maybe some upper 30s coming into parts of Montana and South Dakota. So I'm going to watch this area carefully for possibly getting some frost in low-lying areas. But outside of that, way too warm. This is now Saturday and into Sunday of this week. So that is what our temperature patterns look like. So if we stretch that out over the next 5 days, remember the broader trough is here. The ridge is sitting in place there. The storm track is this direction. So we stay cool on this side of the jet stream, the northern side, and warm on the south side. Big trough number 2 is now in place. Big ridge sitting here day 6 through 10. That's the warm-up we just talked about. And this even stretches all the way out to days 11 through 15, which remember takes us all the way out here deep into the 3rd week of the month. So this really kind of pulls away the frost discussion at this point. The tropics is kind of neat to see here. Here's current sea surface temperatures. Dorian really left a nice cold water trail here, taking all that energy out of the water. We're expecting a broader high pressure system to dominate, which means any would-be systems that are forming in this area do have a better chance at kind of curling around that high. But that's not a guarantee. If we just look over the next 5 days, there are 2 systems to be watching, one here and here. And as they move toward the southeast coast of the United States, I know they're only given a 20% chance of forming over the next 5 days right now, but that doesn't mean they don't have the potential. We're going to watch them very, very carefully throughout the week to see if we get any sort of modification in this forecast from the National Hurricane Center. Okay, so keep a close eye on these next 2 systems. We do notice that as we get out to the 3rd and 4th weeks of the month, the upper level support shifts out of the Eastern Pacific more over toward the Atlantic, giving us better chances for having an active second half of September with our tropical activity. So we're going to keep a close eye on that as well. And speaking of tropical activity, just yesterday, a typhoon, and I'm not sure how to pronounce the name, but it's Faxai, that was the name of it. But this typhoon hit Japan. And it's these systems moving into the flow of the jet stream that are going to possibly give us some uncertainty beyond the next few days here, simply because as their energy gets absorbed into the jet stream, it actually helps to enhance a lot of troughing here on the Aleutian Islands. And that's what's really tricky about the longer range forecast. So watch that typhoon over the coming days. Just speaking about what's going on in Asia, I've been saying now for several videos how this region south of Beijing has been dry. The next 10 days keeps it dry. And remember, that's this productive cropland right in through here. So we've continued to see drier than average conditions in that area, which could be impacting the end of the year here for the corn and soybeans grown in that area. So let's keep a close eye on it. Maybe just a source of some global news here with weather. Meanwhile, Europe, nothing major that's to be discussed with Europe. We got a bit of a warmer pattern coming in, even though over the weekend they had some snow in the Alps, some deep snow in the Alps, but it's the Alps. We kind of expect that. And the last thing I want to show you here is that we're still waiting on the return of the monsoonal moisture. It'd be early if it came back right now. But right now, the drought that is in parts of Brazil, specifically this area through here, not much relief expected anytime soon. It's southern Brazil and parts of northern Argentina and Uruguay that have the wetter pattern in the coming 10 to 15 days. So we're going to watch that very carefully over the coming weeks to see when those rains return, when the monsoon returns, and how it'll affect Brazilian agriculture. But with that, we'll go and wrap it up right here. We at Nutrien Ag Solutions thank you for your attention. Hope you look forward to all of our content coming out this week at my.nutrienagsolutions.com. Have a great week. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.